Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. This is being filmed on Wednesday, June the 18th in the Memorial Arena in Victoria, BC. I'd like to thank our volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes it all happen. The first part of Citizens Forum is always the Walter and Jack show, so I'll start off. I guess it was yesterday that the Harper government approved the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline to carry tar sands crude from Alberta to the ocean. And there's been a flurry of back and forth. But I don't know, to me, it all seems crazy, you know, like, because the thing that's missing, two things are missing. One thing is democracy. I mean, who cares what Stephen Harper wants, or Christy Clark, or the oil companies? What do the people of BC and Canada want? But that doesn't even seem to enter into the discussion. It's never mentioned. Anyways, it's a bizarre situation. All I know is the oil companies have a lot more influence over the government of Canada, the government of BC, and the government of Alberta than the people of this country do. So that's problem number one, is that the oil companies control our governments, and in many cases the opposition parties as well, and they own the media. So what are we going to do, Walter?
Well, what are we going to do? I mean, you have Stephen Harper, the son of an oil executive. You know, if you go back through Stephen Harper's history, you know, he comes from a very radically right-wing ideology, shockingly right-wing, which goes even beyond pro-business, a really anti-democratic background. And apparently he's in a battle with Christy Clark over this pipeline. And, you know, Christy Clark, you know, her associations with the lobbying for Enbridge. You have...
Oh, so you mean Harper has approved it, Christy Clark is saying no, but really they work together.
Let's get serious here. And, you know, in the end, and Christy Clark says, oh, you can't do it without the provincial approval. Well, I don't know, she better study, you know, the how it's set up in Canada. The federal government trumps the provincial government. You can have some problems with jurisdictions, but really, in the end, if the feds want to build a pipeline, there's no provincial government that can stop them. And I think the Sierra Club's also very confused on that point, saying that Christy Clark can stop this pipeline.
But the people can stop that pipeline, because the way it is, the federal government is going to have to go to war.
It's very easy to stop this pipeline, Jack, and just remind everyone, don't elect this type of a government. So keep in mind, I mean, the election's coming up, the federal election's coming up, and the Conservatives are incredibly clever in how to manipulate voting patterns and how to use voting patterns to their advantage. And that's how they helped Christy Clark get in office, by the way, with using a lot of Stephen Harper's key people in her election campaign. And they are counting on, I think, and there's been some writing on this, where we have the Liberals and the NDP are both opposed to this development. They're counting on a vote-splitting thing to happen, and with the Conservatives going to come up the middle and probably not lose one single seat in British Columbia because of two parties opposing. So what you're going to find is that the real credible opposition, let's face it, federally, is the NDP in this case, with Thomas Mulcair and a good set of...
I don't think so.
I think he has more credibility than...
He may have more credibility, but I think they're in third place now.
They have a long-term... Well, they are the official opposition in Canada, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
Federally.
But if you look at the numbers now...
Yeah. But that's a bit what we should worry about. Is that the media now are supporting Justin Trudeau, and he's going to be the white knight to ride in. And basically what he's going to do is rob a lot of votes away from the NDP, and most of those ridings are going to remain conservative.
But in a way, none of it matters, because it seems that no matter who we elect, provincially or federally, nothing changes. It's always the corporate agenda that moves ahead. So, you know, really, you know, Christy Clark, one of the things she's saying why she won't approve the the Enbridge pipeline is protection of the environment. You know, she wants all these high standards for the pipeline and high standards for the coast. But meanwhile, she is just dragging this liquefied natural gas thing and pushing it down the throats of the people of British Columbia. It's going to poison the whole province. So here she pretends that she cares about the environment, and meanwhile she's basically going to poison the province with liquefied natural gas. I mean, it's fracking. It's poison. So I think we have no idea of what's going on. We have all these stories around us. We may think the government works for us, but I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but you know, there's always lesser of evils, and believe me, all politics is all about voting for the person who's going to do the least amount of harm to us.
Yeah, but
while
that's
we try to
why I supported the NDP in 1991 when they got elected. When the NDP got elected, I was jumping up and down. But then over the years that followed, you come to realize that they weren't the lesser of two evils. They were the next step.
Yeah.
In breaking the back of the environmental movement, which they did, in really damaging our healthcare system, which they did, in really going after the poor, which they did.
Yeah.
So, and
well,
then,
you know, sure, but you know, the federal NDP and the provincial NDP are two separate entities.
Yeah, but maybe
Believe
only
me,
because
there's no
the
white
provincial
knights in
gets
this
elected.
business. Okay, there's no white knights in this business, but you really, if you're strategic about voting and you're thoughtful, beware of how the Conservatives are going to play this in British Columbia. And I think they're very smug about what their projections are for winning, how many seats they're going to win in British Columbia in the next election. I bet you they'll pick up as many seats as they have right now, just because of this vote splitting scenario. And I think what's going to happen is Justin Trudeau is going to get boosted up because he has less amount of credibility on this file for sure. Meanwhile, the NDP, who has run long and hard opposed to these things for a long time and have a lot of credibility on this file, are going to lose some support. And that's wonderful for the Conservatives. Believe me, it's how it works.
Well, if that happens, will the NDP come out and say what you just said, which is that the whole thing is fixed? No, they won't, because they know their role. It's to, be buffeted by the corporate winds and do as they're told, and they keep, our MPs keep getting elected. They're very happy.
Well, if you say that, you tend not to get elected.
Yeah, you can't say it. You can't say the truth.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. While we have the situation we have right now with this corporate control of the media. So, I mean, we are in this era where, there are trade-offs, and no doubt about it, but be aware, folks, when you're going out to vote in that next election, take a good hard look at how you've been manipulated by the time you get to those polls.
And you know what? I'm not even going to play that game. The game I'm going to play is we need some democracy in this country. It should have nothing to do with the people we elect. The politicians we elect are not there to do what they want or what they're being told by their corporate and political bosses. They're supposed to be there to do what we want. And as long as they won't do that, and they don't, I don't even want to be involved in their pathetic anti-democratic elections anymore.
I agree, but maybe the difference between you and I is that they have to prove to me that they're corrupt. And the Mulcair hasn't proven that to me yet. In the last election, I would not vote. Provincial election, I would not vote for anybody that was running in that election, because they pretty well had proven to me that they were corrupt. I knew they were corrupt. We had hard evidence they were corrupt, and the way the election was run absolutely proved that they were corrupt. So I didn't vote, but I had a good reason not to. In this case, do your research, because they haven't shown to me that they are absolutely in the pockets of the corporations. I don't believe so federally. I think they do offer credible, some alternatives. No doubt we're going to get into the same business after a while because the pressures are so overwhelming on these guys. But, we're trying to steer a boat away from the rocks here, Jack. We can't build a new boat. We're in this boat. We have to try to get it away from the rocks. And then maybe we're going to find a better system in the meantime.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to my old theme of peace and quiet. I think the world and Victoria need a little bit more peace and quiet. So if everybody could just notch down the noise levels a little bit and think of your neighbors when you're turning on the leaf blower on Sunday afternoon. You don't need a leaf blower.
Yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff. Now, I think peace and quiet is under assault. You know, I talked about motorcycles a couple of weeks ago and how there are laws in place, but the police either will not enforce the laws or the government has not given them the power to enforce the laws. I'm not sure which one it is, but why? You know, that's my question. Why? If some noise bully wants to get a motorcycle and jack it up to 120 decibels and blow down the street, interfering with thousands of people, why does our provincial and city government and the police forces say, yeah, that's fine, we're not going to do anything about it? You know?
You know, it's a little bit like what smoking was like when we were kids. You know, I can remember my dad smoked in the house, and people would come over and fill the house full of smoke. The thought of asking them all not to smoke in the house would have been just outrageous. They would just think it was strange. I think we're kind of in that era where there's not enough of sensitivity to the issue for noise. I certainly do notice it, and I live in a quieter part of Saanich, and very lucky to be living there. But you know, lawn mowers, leaf blowers, and all that stuff are on the go on the weekends. I never mow my lawn until I hear my neighbor mowing the lawn. I thought, well, he's making a racket. I'll go make a racket for an hour.
You're a good citizen.
And we tend to all have nice looking lawns for a few days, and the grass gets tall.
And you know what? Maybe neighborhoods could do that. Here's the time everybody's going to mow their lawn at one or two times, and that way you don't get it going on and on and on.
Yeah.
But even more than that is like a lot of buildings in, you know, James Bay, Fairfield, I'm walking around those areas, seem to have new ventilation systems on them. I don't know, it's like a new law was passed or something, and I mean, when you look at them, you couldn't see anything cheaper than the way they've done it. It's like a piece of junk, so of course it makes a lot of noise. And that means the whole neighborhood has to listen to this, it seems, for no reason whatsoever.
We should do a kind of a noise police kind of a survey and walk around and get a decibel reader and just go around with and check this stuff, and then we could report back on the show.
Well, you know what? Maybe I'll try to borrow one from the Victoria Police Department if they have one.
Oh yeah.
Just see what the numbers are.
It's shocking sometimes what some of those the noises some of those pieces of equipment are putting out. It's really quite high.
And I'm not saying let's do it my way. I'm just saying, is what we have in this town now what all of us want? You know, should it be a subject of discussion? Do we want to tamp it down a bit?
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, peace and quiet was my thing.
Well, I mean, we should talk a little bit about the sewage treatment plant proposal, as you say, the stupid sewage treatment plan. You know, now it's sort of stalled. Today I was on the horn trying to find out what was happening. The CRD is meeting today in camera, which means not on camera, but basically in behind closed doors. They're really tied up in knots over suspending their contract with the private firm that is now controlling the development for this proposed sewage treatment. And but because the government, the provincial government, is unwilling to step in and force Esquimalt to build the plant there, they don't have any place to put a plant, so they don't have a project right now. So that's a very good thing, Jack. You know, let's count our blessings, and hopefully they'll vote to suspend that project, which they've now spent $65 million on. $65 million, not a shovel in the ground, nothing. And I was talking to Stu Young today, the mayor of Langford, who is really, well, politely, I'll say, very upset and about this. And he's really upset about the lack of democracy and a lack of fair process, and saying all the things that we've been saying all this time. The CRD's out of control, and they're operating on an agenda that appears that is such a pro-development agenda that they're not listening to the public. So hopefully we can go out and interview Stu Young on the issue. I think we're at a time right now where this is one of these cases where something good might come out of this, and and a lot better ideas and will come forward, and much more sensible development proposals will come forward.
Well, here was a column written in the Times Colonist yesterday, Tuesday, June 17th, by Carol Hamilton, who's the mayor of Colwood. And it's almost it's a remarkable column. What she said, this is the mayor of Colwood. The CRD says a system of distributed plants will take too long to build. Not true. Colwood has a site and aims to have its system operational by 2017, well before the 2020 federal deadline. Our residents have been overwhelmingly supportive of this approach. So what she's saying is that what the CRD is telling us is not true. This is the mayor of Colwood telling us that what the CRD is telling us is not true. I mean, what's going on with the CRD? She goes on to say, the CRD says smaller systems will be more costly. I mean, Jeff Young is saying that every day now. The CRD says smaller systems will be more costly. Not true. A new plant in Sechelt, big enough for a population the size of Colwood, is being built at a cost of about $25 million. This is far below the estimate of $125 million, which is what I guess the CRD is using. So a plant is being built for $25 million, which the CRD would cost at $125 million. So, I mean, what's going on here with this sewage treatment?
Well, that's what Mayor Young was saying, that when he was talking to the CRD and asking them what the heck, how can you back up some of these statements, they simply couldn't do it. They don't have the data to back up some of their proposals. When he was saying, why don't we go to these more distributed type of systems, they were telling him, oh, well, the province won't let us do it, you know.
So, I mean, this is completely out of control.
That's right.
We have got to be asking some serious questions about what is going on, because this is $800 million that we're talking about. This is a lot of money and some very strange things going on.
It certainly is. And but the thing is, you know, the municipal elections are coming up in the fall, and one of the things that Mayor Young said to me is there's no accountability here. They can do all sorts of, they can screw things up royally. Nobody seems to have to pay any consequences. And because they're hidden within this CRD, and the CRD is an appointed body, it's so easy to gerrymander and control who's on that board. And believe me, Jack, if you want to straighten this mess out, we should have a directly elected CRD. They're running hundreds of millions of dollars of a budget per year. They've got up around close to 1,000 employees, apparently.
But we should be able to stop them. I mean, they're out of control because we can't stop them.
Because we have no access to them. The public, we should be able to go to the polls, and a CRD director says, if you elect me, I don't want this type of a plant. I want to do A, B, C, and D. We get a chance to vote on these issues. Right now, you get an $800 million project, and nobody's running on that issue. How does that happen? It's because the way the structure is, and the CRD, I believe, should be directly elected.
Well, you know, I think that certainly the mayors of Victoria and Saanich have a lot to answer for through this whole thing. I'd just like to mention the ongoing, I think, corporate attack on public education, which has now led to a teacher strike here in BC. Yeah. I mean, it's all in the way it's framed. That's the way I would frame it. It's an ongoing corporate attack on public education. And they are. I mean, every year, more and more people are sending their kids to private schools because the government, and you know, it's not the government, they're puppets, but our public education system is being attacked.
They're not really private schools. You know, between 35% and 50% of their budget is being paid for by you and I, so the rich people can send themselves to these nice schools with the trimmed hedges and
but there's
lawns.
A lot of different kinds of private schools. A lot of private schools are not for people who are rich. They're just for people who want to be outside the public system. Yeah,
but we do have this issue. We certainly do that. And if you look at what's happening in the media, because I think it's so important to mention that you know, David Black, who's very involved in the oil and gas development in British Columbia, also owns pretty well all the local weekly papers, and there's an editorial that's probably being read all over British Columbia right now, how unethical the teachers are.
So that's coming from David Black.
From that editorial
Victoria
board.
News, Saanich News, right.
And how about the ethics of one person owning all the newspapers? Is there an ethical issue there that they can hammer down our throats their view on what's happening with the teacher strikes, particularly when it's absolutely distorted and wrong? The teachers have been struggling for years for a fair contract. This government's hell-bent on breaking the teachers' union, and that to me is what it's all about. They see the teachers as being a real opposition to their agenda, and they're not that worried about the NDP anymore or anybody else, so they have to reach out and look at what other entities have to be destroyed, and they've been after the teachers for a long time.
And it's not only the teachers, it's the entire public education system. It's,
yeah.
You know, just like they are destroying our healthcare system because they want to privatize it, so they are, you know, attacking and stressing our public education system. And, you know, we don't ever hear about this because they also own the media. Walter, we have 1 minute left, so.
Well, stay tuned. You know, you and I are working on some projects this summer that we want to do some filming, and these sort of events with what's happening with the sewage treatment proposals, I think is something that we're going to bring forward some good programming perhaps on that, and get around and interview some local politicians, and always with that idea of how can we bring democracy about. And you know what, we get we get to meet and talk to maybe people on political stripes we don't usually talk to, and it's such a pleasure to meet these people and agree on some issues. You know, democracy has that way of doing that. It's an umbrella issue that everybody really is concerned about, and I think that's the only way we're going to bring fairness about in the process, is that everybody has to be involved here to get a fair process going.
Thank you, Walter.
Pleasure, Jack.
And thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back. The guest in this segment is Hendrik de Pachter, and we're going to be talking about some very important issues, local and I guess local, provincial, national, and worldwide when you take it all into account.
Indeed.
So, Hendrik, you wanted to start off with Island Rail, or?
Yeah, when you asked me what I wanted to talk about, I had to be in my bonnet about the woeful underfunding of our transit and transportation system here on the island, and I wanted to draw comparisons with the largesse that the Lower Mainland enjoys, and of course the Lower Mainland needs lots of investment because it's heavily populated, etc. But we receive crumbs, and that's what initially I wanted to talk about. But in light of yesterday's woeful and totally expected decision by Prime Minister Harper to approve the Northern Gateway Enbridge pipeline, I think it's really important to point out that anything that people on Vancouver Island can do to reduce the consumption of non-renewable resources really contributes to the solution for this ongoing crisis that we have with our global petro economy. So the fact that I wanted to talk about Island Rail segues nicely into the realities that face British Columbians. If we are going to stop the Northern Gateway Enbridge pipeline, and we will stop it, there is no doubt about that, because we will do this, then we need to look at how we cope in the absence of those revenues and in the absence of non-renewable resources in order for our economy to chug along, grow, or hold place. So I want to make a connection between the decisions made by Prime Minister Harper with regards to promoting the corporate capitalist oil agenda and our need as proactive citizens to make choices that help us to give up our addiction to oil and non-renewable resources. And I think in that regard, continued discussion about the rail system here on the island is very much to the point.
And you know, the two things are completely interconnected, because while Canada seems to be becoming a petro-state with Christy Clark's liquefied natural gas and Stephen Harper's pipelines and the tar sands, things like rail, which are the solution or a part of the solution to the problem, are being starved, so they cannot possibly survive. I mean, why don't we have some kind of vehicles on tracks moving between the western communities, Langford especially, you know, from Langford into downtown Victoria? We have the track that's been sitting there for decades. We have the right of way. We have a downtown that certainly wants more people. And yet, what our city governments have done quite recently is to knock down the rail bridge that would allow those rail cars to come from Langford into downtown Victoria. And it's an amazing occurrence what they've done. Much like the sewage treatment that we've been talking about. You know, you've got to ask, what in the world is going on here?
Well, just thinking rapidly about it, I think it boils down to lack of vision, and also that our political system is in lockstep with the oil industry and to some degree also with the automobile industry, and that those two creatures are extremely significant in the economy of Canada, the economy of the United States. And we don't seem to be able to have the imagination and the political will to change that. We know it's possible. Look at Germany. Germany is a northern country with much more cloud cover than the United States, but Germany has 6 times the solar paneling that America does. Look at Portugal. Portugal's sunny. It's got 70% of its energy now coming, or its electricity rather, coming from solar paneling. Denmark has 60% of its electricity coming from wind. So it's really a lack of vision and an unwillingness to break with the corporate masters who feed our politicians. I hate to say it bluntly, but that's really the way I perceive it, at least.
And I see it exactly the same way. And of course throw in the media, because the things that you're saying, that you've just said about Germany, Denmark, and Portugal, should be front page news. It should be on television, so we'd know about it, and then we'd say, yeah, if they can do it, we can do it.
Right.
But instead it's never mentioned, and that's the media's job, to keep it all quiet.
It's pretty well covered on social media, but social media is a creature that either can be useful or can be ignored, depending upon the whims of those who wish to suppress it or exploit it. On social media, there's no question about the clear debate about non-renewable versus renewable energy. And in terms of the memes that I see, renewable energy is winning hands down. No, if only that were the case in reality in North America. There's nothing impeding us from doing this. Scientists have figured out how each state in the United States could be completely non-renewable energy independent by 2050. It's been done. The science is there, the technology is there. It's the political will to break from the oil automobile hegemony.
Well, it sounds then that we are in a very, very dangerous situation, because if the public will is there, and I think many of us would like to see a lot of changes in many different ways, but the politicians won't do it, then we have to ask ourselves, who are they working for if they're not doing what we want? And I think we all know the answer. The answer is all the top politicians are working for corporate Canada. They're controlled by corporate Canada. And because our system is so archaic, our political system, the few politicians at the top control all the other people that we elect. So everybody has to do what the party leader tells them to do. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the absolute opposite of democracy. We as the people of Canada have got to start democratizing our political system so that it begins to work for us. I think that's more important than any individual issue from pipelines to poverty is to start democratizing the system, because I think what we want, I hope, is a lot better for ourselves than what's being given us.
Well, we see again, I agree with you, and we see again in the recent election in Ontario where Kathleen Wynne won 59 seats with 38% of the vote. So this is a typical situation. It's the classic number in Canada. 38% guarantees a party, federally and provincially, a majority rule. And with majority rule, as we can see under Harper, there is no parlement, there is no discussion, there is no talking. There's proroguing, there's having Parliament or the legislature sit for a few weeks every year, and there really is no robust debate and no willingness on the part of the leading parties to consider that other parties may really be loyal to the province or to the country and wish to improve things. There's just no acceptance that anyone else's vision has something to contribute, and we know from nature that it takes many, many diverse creatures to make a functioning, healthy ecosystem. So it's remarkable that in politics we see a kind of monoculture emerging, much like we have in our agribusiness and in our forestry industry. It's rather disconcerting.
Yeah, so I think the first thing, to counter that is we have to be aware of it. And I think very few people are. I started writing a book about democracy 15 years ago. And 3 or 4 years in, the idea suddenly came to me that, hey, how come I don't know anything about democracy? I lived in what I always thought was a democratic country, but as I was looking into it, I thought I know nothing. And we all know nothing. And it's not by accident that we know nothing. All they want from us is to go to a voting booth somewhere every 4 years and put an X in a box and then go back home, sit down in front of their television programs and let them run the country for themselves. And that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, I'm going to inject a note of hope in this, and the first one that I can cite is the referendum on the HST. That finally succeeded, and the Dogwood Initiative is preparing a referendum on whether or not British Columbians endorse the madness of the Northern Gateway Pipeline. So I see a reason for optimism, but when we go back to the nature of our democracy, I would say that we have this antiquated first-past-the-post Westminster electoral system, which allows a party with 38% to have majority rule. And we really clearly need to address that and change our voting system. That's not going to be the panacea. It's only one part of the change. Clearly we have to address corporate ownership of the media. That, I think, is extremely important. And I really appreciate that Shaw makes this time available so that other voices can be heard. And we also need to restructure our economy, and that allows me to return to this question of Island Rail. Right now, I've actually encountered one municipal politician who's rather pleased with the promise that eventually, once a deal is made with Southern Rail, we may get the crumbs that are being offered by the federal and provincial governments. $7.5 million from Christy Clark, $7.5 million from the feds, and the communities and First Nations along the route have offered another $5 million. So we have a $20 million kitty ready to go once these negotiations are completed. But $20 million is really crumbs off the table. From the point of view of people who are desperate to get rail going, that's great. From the point of view of my grandiose vision of comprehensive rail travel for freight and passengers on the island, it's crumbs. And I'd like to note that in the last 12 years on the Lower Mainland, there have been $7.5 billion worth of investment in transportation and transit infrastructure, as well as about $3.5 billion for Harper's Asia Pacific Gateway projects. And the latter, of course, is designed to move our raw materials, our natural resources, as we have done for 300 years, to ports to ship abroad so that we can import it again at inflated prices. So I really want to understand why the focus is on continually digging up Canada and selling it, as opposed to building a comprehensive infrastructure, a transportation spine on the island that will serve both the needs of passengers and freight, greatly increase safety, reduce carbon emissions, and basically unite communities, particularly with First Nations and local communities having a strong stake in this. If we would look at the sum of money that I talked about on the Lower Mainland, roughly $11 billion over the last 12 years, and we look at the population of the island, roughly 20% of the population of BC, we ought to be receiving something like $220 million a year to build our transportation infrastructure. The last time we had any comprehensive transportation infrastructure building was under the NDP, when the Island Highway was extended from Nanaimo to Campbell River. And that had the pernicious effect of reducing the use of the rail line in favor of trucks shipping goods.
And you know what? There was a very strong wish for rail in Victoria at that time.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And the NDP refused to even talk about it.
And Dean Fortin has frankly sabotaged that with his anti-democratic destruction of the Blue Bridge, a heritage bridge designed by Strauss, who designed the Golden Gate Bridge, unique in the world, a piece of very significant Canadian industrial history. And he's completely destroyed that and destroyed the dream of rail coming right into the heart of Victoria, as it does in Vancouver, as it does in Toronto, as it does in Montreal. So one wonders why. Fortin's folly, I'm calling it, and I urge Victorians to remember that and judge the candidates for mayor and the candidates for council when they come to vote in November. Who is really for comprehensive, integrated transit and transportation here? It certainly is not Dean Fortin.
Yeah, what happened with the Blue Bridge, which went from a $10 million repair, which was the first recommendation from the engineers, into probably a $100 million new bridge, plus the loss of the rail bridge, I think is just incomprehensible how it could have happened. And the senior staff were certainly very involved in making that happen as well.
It appears, to the best of what we can put together, that senior staff in the engineering department decided willy-nilly to neglect the Blue Bridge, and this escaped the purview of the councillors, so shame on them. And on top of that, it was sold to us anti-democratically. The city coughed up $50,000 to convince Victorians to vote for the new bridge, analogous to the $500,000 that Vancouver spent to get Vancouverites to vote for the Olympics, when there was no support, as there should be, for an opposing point of view. So I'm very proud that Victorians, 40% of Victorians, in the absence of any financial support for these ideas, actually opposed the destruction of the Blue Bridge.
Yeah.
And I question again how democratic we are when it's the city engineers who can determine what policy is, as opposed to our politicians.
Yeah, I think all of our local politicians have got to be very careful of senior staff. I'm not saying don't trust them, but I think at some point in time you need proof that what you're being told is correct. That's basic. Hendrik, thank you very much. Our time's
Rail
up.
to stop Enbridge. That's my bottom line.
Rail to stop Enbridge. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome to segment 3 of Citizens Forum. I'd like to thank again our volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes it all happen. And thanks to all of you for watching and for the nice things we all sometimes hear from viewers. Our guest in this segment is Huguette Barbeau. Huguette is one of the owners of Mother Nature's Market and Deli in the Cook Street Village, where I often shop.
Thank you.
So Huguette, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we'll get right into it. Question number 1, what's the difference between natural and organic?
Well, organic is a certification that you can get. Certified organic means it's been approved with a strict set of rules. For example, that the crop have been clean for a certain number of years, that fertilizers that are harmful haven't been used. For livestock, it would ban hormone growth or steroids and things like that that can be harmful to animals. And certified organic means that an organization is taking care that those rules are followed and applied, and there's a random inspection to make sure that there's a follow-up pretty much to make sure it happens. Natural, we should raise a little flag when we hear natural. It can be wonderful, especially for the smaller farmer, which I love to support. The guy that have a very small farm that's growing blueberries and is doing a great job without pesticide, without anything, might not be able to afford the certification, or might be even too small to consider to get the certification. But the produce would be natural. The other thing that we have to consider is it became a big business, natural, and it can be used as a marketing tool. So you can see natural flavors on a package, but maybe it's packed with preservatives.
I just heard yesterday on the radio that natural flavors can include MSG.
Oh, yeah. So those are very scary things that can happen with natural. It becomes marketing, really.
So natural can be made use of by somebody who wants to do us harm because it has no meaning in law.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I shop organic as much as I can. Sometimes I question, because there's a new Canadian standard, and with Mr. Harper being the Prime Minister, I don't know if I can trust that Canadian standard or the USDA. What do you think?
You have to educate yourself. There's USDA is the biggest one. Now there's a Canadian one. I think there's 5 or 6 total. You have to educate yourself. Who are the farmers? Would always be the first questions to ask. Organic became a big industry, 26 billion industry. Therefore, where it has to be regulated, but it has to be checked. And I would say that you have to check who are the farmers.
Do you guys do that?
We try to work with local as much as possible. Yes, exactly. We try to know our farmers. I know the guy who sells me my blueberries, my lettuce. He comes himself to the store often after, things like that. So when you get to know your farmer, you know their practice. Bigger is the organization, more chances you have. That rule can be bent. Mass production is often an issue. So that's pretty much what's going on.
Is it good to buy local even if it's not organic?
I believe so. I strongly believe so for the reason that I've just mentioned. Know your farmer. The small guy that's doing the right thing should be supported, even if he cannot get the certification because he's too small or for whatever reason being. It doesn't mean that he has a bad product. And we should support the local economy. It's sustainability also. And yes, I think that we should buy local as much as possible.
I think we all know that a lot of our food is somewhere between not healthy and poisoned. So how about children when they're eating, for example, GMO everything these days, unlabeled, and as well as the pesticides, the chemicals, the hormones, and everything else?
Yeah. This is one of my personal battle. It's one of the reasons where I started this whole thing. children, logically by body weight, they have like 1/3 of an adult body weight. Therefore, the amount of chemicals they're taking is 3 times higher than an adult. Also, because they're growing, their system is much faster than an adult, so the absorption for children of chemicals will be much higher than for adults. And where I have very strong issues about food additives is a lot of those additives actually target children because it's food coloring, food flavoring. So those bright yellow, red candies, those sugar cereals, there's many examples out there are packed with food coloring, food preservative, and it's been studied. It's been linked to cancer, to ADHD, to hyperactivity, to learning disability. It's done. The study's been made, and yes, children are vulnerable for one thing because they want to eat those things because they don't know better, and it harms them quite a bit.
So, I mean, that's when our government is supposed to step in and protect us, but obviously they don't because it's all allowed.
Yeah. You know, there's different answers to that. One of them is lobbying. Food industry, like anything else, there's big lobbying going on. And if I'm a multi-billion company and the government is saying, I'm going to ban this ingredient, yellow number 5, which is one of the worst, well, then you have lobbying going on of people saying, well, you can't do that because it's going to be very costly to us. And also, government is usually reactive. Once again, not only in this industry, but usually government react when things happen. We can think of asbestos back then was massively used, and finally people realized that it was a bad thing. Tobacco products are available, and I don't think anybody can argue that it's harmful, but it's still available. So I don't think we can count on the government to make choices for us. We need to get educated and make choices for ourselves.
Is there a natural food or a organic food group that lobbies for our health somewhere? I guess it's much smaller than...
Absolutely. And that's why it's two things, right? Exactly. So people are speaking up more and more. Studies are out there more and more. The outreach of the organic industry and small farmers are putting the word out. Look, see what you're eating. And it's becoming more and more popular. And that's why the organic industry is growing so fast.
Well, I think about 80 or 90% of Canadians want genetically contaminated foods to be labeled.
Absolutely.
So 80 to 90%, but somehow none of the politicians seem to care about that. I mean, 80 to 90%, and they won't do anything.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Is it only the humans that are affected by additives and chemicals?
You know what? Human beings tend to forget that we're part of something sometimes. By adding chemicals, pesticides, hormones to our food, we contaminate the soil, the land, the water. If you put, you know, it's about 1 billion liter of pesticide each year that's put on the land. Obviously, it's going to the soil and it's going to destroy life. And we have to think about the food chain. Pretty much, if you destroy the content of the soil, you will destroy the life in the soil by using all those soaps or chemicals for a house cleaning purpose or things like that. That's going through the water. It's the same thing. You have a lot of living species in the water that will be affected by it, and so I think we have to be conscious of the footprint that we leave behind us by consuming so many chemicals.
Well, I'll jump ahead a few questions then and say, what about organic skincare, organic shampoo, all those other cleaning products, etc., that are hopefully a lot cleaner than the corporate stuff?
Yes. You know, I would say it's the second battle of the organic industry. People really start to understand food. I think there's a lot of example out there, But for some reason, the conscience is not fully there yet about chemicals on the body. 1 on 8 ingredient used in skincare is an industrial chemical. And I'm talking about degreasers, I'm talking about paint thinners, heavy industrial chemicals.
Degreasers and paint thinners are used in
lotions, soaps, things like that. Yes, so it's quite scary if you think that you're going to rub your skin with it or wash your hair. The body absorbs not only through the mouth but through the entire body those chemicals, and it harms the body quite a bit because the body is absorbing it, and the body is not intent to have industrial chemicals added to it. So
being dirty is starting to look good. I'm stopping. I know that they use lead in lipstick,
yep,
which seems completely insane.
yes.
But and without any warning. I mean, do women really want to be putting lead when lead is such a toxin?
It's pretty bad. You know, there's a degree because it's a little bit like a cigarette. When people will say 1 cigarette won't kill you,
Yeah.
maybe not. But if you add up in a day all the chemicals and you do it day after day after day after day, it's starting to be a serious issue. Yes. Exactly.
So I think what you're saying is that in a lot of skin products, a lot of cleaning products, there's a lot of chemicals being used.
Oh, quite a bit. I would say that most of them, especially cleaning product, household cleaning product, are very, very bad sometimes, and it goes straight to the water, straight, to the soil.
And straight into us.
Yeah, yeah.
So is there a noticeable difference in the quality of the products that you guys sell?
You know what? I like to do tests. I do a lot of teaching in schools and things like that, and I always have those little tests that I say, you don't have to take my word for it. Do this and see for yourself. For example, if you take conventional chicken and with a certain weight, buy an organic chicken with the exact same weight, put them at the oven at the same time, see what comes out of your oven. The chicken that's conventional will shrink quite a bit because it's been stuffed with hormone growth, and it will kind of lose, just like those bodybuilders that are all buffed. It's pretty much it's going back down, and an organic chicken will hold its shape, and the taste is noticeable. You taste the difference clearly. Some products are easier to see the difference. Mango is one of them. For some reason, conventional mango versus an organic mango, you taste the difference. And we're not talking about the nutrients and all those things that are much better in an organic product because they haven't been destroyed by chemicals.
You know, we Canadians really deserve a better quality of food than we're getting from our agribusiness industry and the government that's supposed to protect us. And, it's just one more example of where they don't do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Why is organic more expensive?
That's another battle that we have at the store because a lot of people are saying, if organic wouldn't be so expensive, we would buy more. But once again, we have to see what we're buying. If a guy, I'll keep the chicken example, if a farmer is raising chicken and the chicken are fed antibiotic, hormone growth, steroid, it's going to take about 7 weeks for that chicken to reach maturity and be sold for consumption. As opposed to the organic farmer who will say, no, I won't do that. My chicken will be free to run and I won't give any chemicals to my chicken. It's going to take 15 weeks for that chicken to reach maturity. So clearly, the math is very easy to do. Conventional is much faster because you push it and to be faster. And the organic one is not, so you can't, the turnover is not as efficient. It's exact same with soil, with an orchard or anything like that. Another very good example is strawberries, especially now it's season. We have local strawberries, and if you take an organic strawberry and you take a conventional strawberry, it's going to be about 3 times the size. Strawberries are not intended to be the size of a prune. It's not normal, and the taste is there, but therefore the guy that's producing his strawberries will have 1/3 the production of the conventional one. So therefore it's more expensive because those farmers can't reach that if by doing the right thing. And I think that we have a duty to support that. If we want things to change, to say, okay, I have to accept that this farmer is doing the right thing, and I have to accept to pay a little more for quality.
Yeah, but also we should have I mean, this is kind of surprising stuff. Whoever hears this, I mean, we should all know what the difference is, that there is a difference between organic and plus, unfortunately, the regular produce is destroying the soil and kind of poisoning us in many
Absolutely.
ways. So where does that fit into the equation? You know, it doesn't seem to. It just happens to us. Huguette, we're almost out of time. How can we protect ourselves? Is there an alternative to artificial ingredients?
Absolutely. You know, strongly believe in education. Educate yourself. I think people have to realize that they have a very strong power as a consumer. The day we stop buying those harmful products that are killing us slowly but surely, the market will react because people want to be in business and they will have to adjust to it. And to protect ourselves, we have to read labels, know your farmers, know where the products are from, shop where you know that it's going to be support, that the sustainability will be supported and that it's going to be good for you.
You know, I've noticed on a lot of labels, the printing is getting smaller and smaller. I don't think they want people to read the labels, so they're just making it smaller. It's kind of a...
Yes, and they're playing a lot these days with labeling because organic is becoming so more popular. So they're playing tricks with the natural, as I've said before.
Is the federal and provincial government supporting organic with all they've got?
I don't believe so. It's a matter of lobbying. So I think that more and more powerful, more people will support the organic industry, the more power the organic industry will have with the government and any other authorities.
Huguette Barbeau, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for watching Citizen Forum this week.